I was telling someone this the other day. Two things: secret agents don't get found, and closed mouths don't get fed. Um,
Ooh, hold on a second. Secret agents don't get found and closed mouths
don't
don't
get
get
fed.
fed.
Okay.
Wow, powerful. Okay.
I have always been willing to do something good for someone else in order to be able to ask for something in return. So I don't come and I don't anticipate, no one owes me anything. So I'm the person who's always willing to do for someone else just in case. Okay. And I don't like to even come back for my just in cases. I just want you to know that.
Welcome to the Success with Listings podcast, where we help you get success in the real estate game the easy way. Now you can get off the roller coaster of feast and famine and out of the rat race of competing with every other agent in town. Hi, I'm Knolly Williams. I took over 1,000 listings during my first 10 years in the real estate game, and in this podcast, I show you how to have success with listings. Let's go.
What's up? What's up? Knolly Williams back at you again. And I have a super special guest today, Marki Ryhal. And I got to tell you just a couple of quick notes about Marki. She is the podcast host of Drive with NAR. That's right. The National Association of Realtors official podcast. She is the host of it. Big time. We're talking big time. She is a fifth generation entrepreneur. She actually got into the education space back in 1993, if you can believe it. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Got in the game, in the real estate game in 1999. She's been in adult education for a long time as well. And Marki, what's up? How you doing?
Man, everything is up. The world is good to us, isn't it?
It's
Uh,
so good.
I'm looking up at my bookshelf because my son, who's a sixth generation entrepreneur, second generation realtor member, came and took your book. He
Oh,
Skylar Lemons loves you. He said your book, that book is
yeah,
fire.
right there, right there, right there.
Right,
That's
that's
it.
it. He
That's
says it's fire.
That's the manual. That's the manual. I like it. I like it. That's awesome. That's so awesome. I had to get you on, Marki, because you and I have kind of followed each other. We've met at a couple of different events. What comes to mind is you're loud and proud. Okay. But here's the thing. You've had some adversity. We'll talk
Oh,
about that in a
yes.
little bit. You know what it's like to not 100% know what the future holds. I
Hmm.
mean, you know who holds the future, but looking at like, okay, well, wait a minute. I don't know. You've had some dark times.
Yes.
And so we'll talk about how you overcame that. But I want to talk about this whole idea of being a fifth generation entrepreneur. Now
Oh,
that's a first for me. My dad was an entrepreneur. I could say I'm second generation, but fifth generation,
yes.
speak to us about that.
The other day I was thinking my great grandmother,
Mm,
she actually sold newspapers, and my great grandfather, and they came from entrepreneurs in Mississippi. So both sides of my family came from Mississippi. And
mm,
my great grandmother owned a paper stand that is still standing here in the city of Chicago. And my great grandfather was a porterman, but he got injured at the railroad. So he sold popcorn, and they were able to send their six children to school. However, what my family is known for is my family is owns Chicago's second oldest Black restaurant. We're still in business. This
wow.
year marks 70 years. My
70.
grandfather, James Lemons, has
Mm,
been inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame because my
wow.
family has sold the most pork rib tips in the city of Chicago.
Wow.
Legends eat at Lem's
Wow.
Barbecue when they come to
Wow.
Chicago, and often we're on the top 10 barbecue restaurants, not only in the city of Chicago, not only in the state of Illinois, but also in the country. And so I started working at the tender age of 10 in front of our barbecue restaurant because I asked for one too many pair of designer jeans. My grandfather realized that I was very good at counting money. So by the time I was 12 years old, I was his cashier at peak hours on Friday after school and Saturdays. So I've been
Wow.
I've been counting money for a long.
Oh, and that the blessing in that, I became an entrepreneur at 12, and the blessing in that when you see the money come across, I mean, it just kind of it creates like a fire, a little bit of an appetite, and you realize that somebody's making money. Somebody's making money somewhere, and people will gladly hand over their money to you if you've got the right product,
You got to.
that they desire. So. that is so amazing. The fact that you grew up as an entrepreneur, but yet you still went on to school. You got your
Yes.
master's in business administration. You have an undergrad degree in hospitality as well, which is just a 1-2 punch. I mean, just imagine that kind of combination. A lot of people don't understand the power of hospitality when it comes to the game that we're in, because we're dealing with psychology, we're dealing with human beings. And when you learn how to treat people right and create that 5-star service, I mean, they just don't know where else to go. So talk a little bit about that. What inspired you because you really already knew the business game, but yet you still went into higher education.
So here's what's kind of interesting. Born and raised in the restaurant business. However, I thought I was going to be a hairstylist. And my mother was like, you're not going to want to stand on your feet when you're in your 50s and your 60s all day. I think you should go and get a degree. And my family had invested a lot of money sending me to private grammar school and parochial high school. I didn't want to go to college, but because my mother acted such a fool, I went to college. And this is what I told her when I left home to go to school. I said, I'm going to go. I'm not going to like it. And I'm coming right back home. But I went to Central State University, a historic Black college and university. I had never seen so many fine Black men in my life. When I get there, I said, who don't come to college? Like, who would not do this? And I got to play grown while still being on their dime. And instantly, when not instantly, but I had the opportunity to own my first restaurant at the age of 20, and it failed. I had 2 businesses. I was in business with my mother. We had concession stands. My mother was a concessionaire with a food truck in the city of Chicago back in 1982. So I deal with a family of pioneers as well. And when my restaurant failed, but my concession business was going well, I realized I didn't know everything, even though I was in college. And so when Looney's failed, I said to myself, I'm going to go to grad school immediately after I complete undergrad, because this education is only foundational. It didn't give me what I needed. And so while I was in grad school, I started working for Chicago Public Schools. I quickly realized I loved education. I loved children. I did not like their parents. I said, yeah, I'm going to teach, but I'm not going to do it like this. So the opportunity came when I graduated from grad school. 1 month later, I was hired by a community college that had a hospitality management program for me to come in and be essentially an adjunct faculty of their hospitality management program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow. I've never told anybody that story before.
That is amazing. Well, you're not going to believe this, because we haven't talked about it, but my mother and father both graduated from Central State University.
Get out of here.
So Wilberforce, Ohio.
Right. Look, Wilberforce right across the street. I know all about it. Look, out between the cornfields. You got to come through Dayton, then through Xenia, Ohio, right on down the highway.
I went to Xenia High School. Xenia High School.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Oh yeah, so I know all about it. Went to Central State, pledged out for Sweetheart at Central State, came back. Amazing. Went to Chicago, actually graduated from Chicago State. So 2 CSU undergrads, and love Central State University. Just, you know what?
That's amazing.
Everybody, parents didn't send them for the same reason. Let's go there.
Right. I know. There's some parties going on over there.
Some parties going on.
Remember the union?
Yes.
And so my dad used to work there. He worked in back in the day, they had a bowling alley. I don't know if it's even still there. He worked in the bowling alley at the union. And I remember when I was 3 or 4, I wasn't 5 yet. I actually broke they had glass doors, and I was playing around and I threw a rock into it and smashed the glass door. And they sent the police out, not the police, but the campus police. And he talked like he was going to arrest me. And boy, it shook me up pretty good, like straightened me out. But yeah, I remember many days hanging out there on campus. So
wow,
quite interesting.
I want to say this. There was a bus, a green bus. It was called Wilbur, right?
Yeah, I remember that. It took you right into town.
Right. And I thought Wilbur was old then, but I'm talking to people and they was like, no, Wilbur just retired. I'm like, well, Wilbur looked old in 1988.
No way.
And we would take Wilbur would come to campus and pick our stuff up for Christmas break and store it for us. So he helped pull the trunk out, put it
Yeah.
on the bus. So yeah, it was $1 for Wilbur to take us into town,
Yeah, I
into
remember
Xenia,
that.
to go to the grocery stores. I think it might have been Kroger back in the day. So yeah, I went
Yeah,
to
they had rinks. I don't know if you remember rinks. And there was Ma, you remember Ma Beatty's hamburger
no.
joint? Yeah, that
Mm-mm.
anyway. I'm getting way off track, but we're going way back in time. That is so amazing. Yeah, many times I took Wilbur because you didn't want to have to walk into Xenia when you needed stuff. And
No.
yeah, so anyway, so amazing, so interesting. So okay, so let's get back on track. Now you are the podcast host of Drive with NAR, arguably, the biggest podcast, from a name standpoint. I mean, National Association of Realtors, you talk about from a real estate standpoint, and you actually have done a lot of stuff for the NAR. You've volunteered, you've helped us as agents have better positioning. It just seems like you love that kind of stuff. How did you create a relationship with NAR? I mean, it seems like they always are calling you for something, like to speak or to do so, uh,
Yes.
how did that begin?
I was telling someone this the other day. Two things. Secret agents don't get found and closed mouths don't get fed. Um,
Ooh, hold on a second. Secret agents don't get found and closed mouths
don't
don't
get
get
fed.
fed.
Okay.
Wow, powerful. Okay.
I have always been willing to do something good for someone else in order to be able to ask for something in return. So I don't come and I don't anticipate, no one owes me anything. So I'm the person who's always willing to do for someone else just in case. Okay. And I don't like to even come back for my just in cases. I just want you to know that. So, with that being said, if I think about being the podcast host of Drive with NAR, I'm also the podcast host of Social Selling Made Simple, my own podcast. We've delivered over 160 episodes. NAR already knew that I was a successful podcaster. What people also know about me is that, I'm going to say the person who has the least amount of baggage. Okay, let me
Mm,
say that.
sure.
I'm not involved in people's nonsense, okay? I'm 100% here to do business. I have a husband and 2 children to come home to. You're not catching me, sitting at the bar late at night. I don't have any relationships, extramarital, none of that inside of real estate. So I come with the least amount of baggage because I can eat.
Mm,
Because there are people always vibing for my jobs, but they don't
sure.
understand. They bring a bunch of baggage
Right.
with them, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
they didn't ask for it. Now,
Wow.
how did I get positioned for this? Besides all of that, is the fact that I already had a very good relationship with Realtor magazine dating back to 2008
Mm,
when they started reaching out to me for articles on social media, technology, foreclosures, and short sales, which is where we initially crossed paths, right?
sure. That's right.
And so I had already had essentially a great 15-year working relationship with Realtor Magazine that oversees the podcast. Didn't even know that this was an opportunity, did not apply for it. They actually reached out to me to see if it was something that I wanted to do. But normally I do apply. If you even looked at the Realtor Conference and Expo, I've been there 10 times, but I
Mm,
always submit a great application. So I take the time every December to sit down to submit a great application. I
mm,
don't make the assumption that because I've now have 10 great years and I'm going to always be in the top 1% rated that, oh, they're going to say next year, Marki, you should come and do this. No, I submit an application, a great application, I
sure.
might mention, to be
Sure.
able to come back. And so that's how that opportunity presented itself. And initially, they had an employee doing it, and they knew that they wanted a realtor member to do it. Let me say this. In being a realtor member, I'm not a typical realtor member. I'm
Mm,
a major investor. I'm President Circle. I'm a federal political coordinator for Congressman Jonathan Jackson.
mm,
I come with no baggage. I sit on the board of directors of the National Association of Realtors, the Chicago Association of Realtors, and the Real Estate Business Institute. I give a lot of time, energy, and money to our industry, and I'm an
so
advocate.
amazing. So amazing.
So, and so a lot of things have been done
Mm,
to be able to have these other opportunities. But I ask for them.
Yeah.
So I don't take anything, my past, I'm not taking that for granted. And here's
Yeah.
why I say that. In the last 60 days, I've had the opportunity to go to Nova Scotia because I had a conversation with their CEO at the IOI Summit. This week, I was at Next Home out in Vegas. I had a talk with their CEO at the same IOI Summit in Miami. I asked them both to hire me. When I saw them and we sit down face to face and I'm smiling at someone, I'm going to always lean over and say, have you thought about this? What are some of the things that you're working on?
Yeah.
I think that I can be of assistance to you.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And, you know, and we're talking about positioning, like positioning yourself. I mean, you've already positioned yourself as the leader. You know, it reminds me of a book, Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. And you're actually putting in a lot of this kind of work, expecting nothing in return. But when the opportunity presents itself, you open your mouth and you're on it. You know, you're on it. And so that's so critical. You know, I was just coaching with an agent yesterday. And she says, "Oh, I don't want to become famous. I don't want to be well known." I mean, I had to put the kibosh on that real quick and give her a nice coaching session around that, because there's so many self-limiting beliefs that you know, people have, myself included, around this idea of being out there and asking for what it is that you desire. So I think you've made it real crystal clear. I want to talk a little bit about social media.
Okay.
Because a lot of us in this industry shy away from it. There's still a pitifully low amount of agents out there doing video, podcasting, being active in social media in a way that is, you know, constructive to their career. And so and by the way, I've learned so many things social media wise and just tools. You're like the queen of tools. Like I learned how to use Loom from some article you wrote, and I've been using it for years. Just tiny little things that and in fact, just even today, you brought your AI assistant with you to take notes.
I did.
You know, I pulled it up. I said, "Why is there two people in the waiting room?" Marki brought her AI with her. She brought her robot with her. So talk about social media. What do you see? You could talk about what's on the horizon or even why it's so important that we really plug in the right way.
So let me go back to why I use it in the first place. There are two reasons. One was the 2006 profile of buyers and sellers from the National Association of Realtors. And basically, it told me that from 1995 to 2006, the amount of consumers using the internet as a source of information had gone from 2% to 80%. I Googled myself. I came up less than 10 times. I realized I wasn't hanging out online where the consumers were hanging out. I need to fix this. At the same time, there's a gentleman by the name of Freddie Taylor. He has built multiple seven-figure businesses. We're very good friends. Freddie said, "Look here, Marki, you need to use Facebook and social media to get the message out." So when I used it consistently, I started to generate leads. So this meant that I didn't need bus benches. I didn't need billboards. I didn't need the classified ad that was running in the back of the Sun-Times, and that I was generating a bunch of leads for absolutely no money. That means I'm getting a higher return on my investment and on my time. So instantly I start saying to myself, Marki, you need to think with the end in mind. It's better, right, to use this 36-year-old mind than to try to figure it out as you get older.
Right.
So in 2006,
the sooner the better.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha.
I start thinking with the end in mind. And when I come back to that, secret agents don't get found. It's my responsibility to market my services. You can never act like you don't know what I do for a living. And if you Google my name and spell it correctly, you're going to find out, right? This is free advertising, but it's really not about me. It is about me being where the consumer is willing to tell me all their business in real time.
Right.
And on social media, consumers tell us all their business in real time for us to update our customer relationship management system to build rapport. Okay. So that's really why I use it. However, The first week of December 2022, I embraced ChatGPT. I'm among the first 2 million people to use a tool that now has 180 million users.
Wow.
And that means that I've had a productive, electrifying trained assistant for the past, 14, we might be at the 15th month mark. In the first 6 months of leveraging ChatGPT, I was able to increase my productivity by 261%, but my income by 283%.
What?
Oh yeah, I'm loving this stuff. I'm loving it, right? So now what I know to be a fact is not only how many leads I need to generate to earn the amount of money in which I desire, but more importantly, how much content does it take to generate the amount of leads I want to generate, to earn the amount of money I want to earn because of the new tools that we've implemented over the past 15 months.
So amazing. So amazing. I mean, I really love how you broke down the reason because a lot of times we go to, we read articles or we see some other agents in our market doing certain things and we just say, okay, well, maybe that's what I should be doing, instead of really understanding the purpose behind why you're doing it in the first place. What's your end game, and being smart enough to say, hey, let me get ahead of the curve with this, because, and I ask agents all the time, I said, in the next 10 years, do you see technology increasing or decreasing?
It's going to increase.
No. Obviously. So why not get into it now instead of wait? So
look,
yeah,
when your mind, it's churning faster, right? I'm doing these things now. Well, one, I'm actually getting smarter over time because I'm training my mind.
Right.
So my mind now, I'm learning and becoming smarter as I age.
That's
because
right.
One, I'm forcing myself to use tools that I was not born and or raised with. But I know that we had initially talked about sellers, and this is what I want you to think about when it comes to AI. There are over 3 million custom GPTs inside of ChatGPT. I went and used one. It's called Home Style. I can take any picture, load it to Home Style, and ask it for a list of staging recommendations and ask it to create an after photo of the picture I just loaded. Okay. So what does that mean to us? It means that every day we can go to the expireds. I did this the other day. It was 6 that came up for me in my marketplace. Of the 6, 2 only had one photo. Instantly, I can take that one picture, ask for staging recommendations. We know one picture is not acceptable, but we're going to leave that alone, right? Ask for staging recommendations. And then one of the 6 was a recent rehab, but they had not virtually staged any of the rooms. So out of the 6 expired, I now have a unique selling proposition.
Absolutely.
It took me 2 minutes on each property to create the staging recommendations and an after photo. So now I get to strategically reach out to the expired listings with something of value that my competition isn't doing. So then I start thinking blue ocean strategy. How do you leverage these tools to differentiate yourself from the competition, to do something consistently? And it's boring, as my son would say, real estate success is about doing boring things consistently.
That's right.
But I promise you, your competition is not doing what it is I just said, because only 15% of adult Americans are using ChatGPT, let alone paying $20 a month to use the plus version.
Right. So amazing. And for me, from what I've seen of you in the industry over the years, you've always been really on the bleeding edge. You're a person that really likes to know what's going on out there and invest the time to learn it. And then that initial time that you invest up front, it actually pays for really the rest of your career. And here's the cool thing though, you turn around and actually teach us how to do this. And so I want to talk in a moment about how people can get in touch with you, how they can, because I know you've got some fire training. I've taken, I've consumed it, I've taken it, and it's really is the best.
Thank you.
So, but before that, let's talk a little bit about, you've had some adversities, like you don't have to get into specifics around it.
It's
but,
okay.
I grew up as an abused kid. I was beaten by mom, and she was an angry single parent. And in our culture, and back then, whooping your kid wasn't frowned upon,
No, it
and
was
she
not.
and she actually took it a little too far when she
Far.
got out the extension cords and all the other stuff that she did.
Yes.
But and so I was told, you'll never amount to anything, boy, you're worthless. And there was some things that we have to overcome. And a lot of times people say, well, Marki, well, she can do it. I mean, look, she's on the board of directors. That no, she's
Yeah.
like, you just had good your whole life, like you've never
No.
had adversity. So speak to that, Marki.
Wow.
You've overcome some
So,
things.
here's the thing. Both of my parents were teen unwedded parents. They're
Mm,
both the black sheep of their families. Both of my parents were heroin addicts. I would beg to venture my father was a heroin addict my entire life until he drew his last breath. My
mm,
mother started using heroin when I was 18 years old. So I left for Central State, leaving my mother a non-addict. And by the time I came home at the end of my freshman year, she was a new person. And
mm,
my grandmother knew it. So my grandmother is the first person to tell me that my mother was using drugs, and
mm.
that my grandmother said, Marki, you and I need to keep an eye out on Denise. That's what my mother's name is Hazel
Yeah.
Denise. You need to keep an eye out on her. Here's where things are kind of interesting. They were both the black sheep of, I would call, prominent and prosperous families, right?
Mm, mhm.
My grandparents overcompensated for the lack of parenting they thought that my parents provided as a result of their addiction. So it
Sure.
really turns out I was kind of like a spoiled brat who had two addict parents who were conspiring with their grandparents to tell their grandparents everything their parents were doing. Right?
Wow.
So that's where the opportunity, but my mother was always a hustler. So my mother was a phenomenal mother up
Hmm.
until the time of her addiction. And then I
Sure.
had to deal with her addiction for 15 years until she finally went to rehab, got herself together, right?
Mm.
But my father, we died in battle with one another because I told him I would not allow his disrespect. What I'm clear about is I am a child of God, and
Amen.
God never intended, including my parents, to not treat me as such. So
That's
my
right.
tolerance for disrespect has always been very little because of my grandparents. And
Mm.
a lot of times, children, we don't have the image behind the parents. So,
Sure.
my parents were hands on parents, then they were front and center. But I had people behind them, right, surrounding me. So I could always look around them to be like, oh, it's something different. And then I'd be like, God, and you gave me the two fools out the pack, right? But he did, right?
Right.
And from that lesson, not only am I highly educated, I have phenomenal common sense, but I also have street credibility.
That's right.
So my discernment is phenomenal, and that's because of my parents.
Yeah.
And I often think that my parents were a sacrifice made for me not to make the same mistake. That's
Mm.
how much God loves me.
It's such a perspective, and I feel the same way. It was like when I broke that cycle of violence with in and my wife and I decided not to have children, but just in going forward, I was an angry young man, and I said, you know what, I'm going to break this, and so I did break it in my early 20s, and thank God, I just turned 54,
Come on now.
and yeah, and that can be, these so-called, generational curses can be broken.
They can.
These things can be turned around, and a fresh perspective can be gained. And the way you looked at it, when you talk about forgiveness, easily you can forgive because you realize that they actually did you a favor in
Or
many
they
ways.
did.
Yeah,
Most definitely. They were the sacrifice.
right.
They were the sacrificial lamb, because I could have easily, in private school, my
Sure.
spirit's a little different, right?
Sure.
I could have fallen into the same trap, but I had already declared at the age of 6, I'm
Hmm.
not using drugs, because I knew at 6 that drugs can turn your house into a
Mm.
turmoil.
That's
I
right.
knew it at the age of
That's right.
6. I'm like, whatever this nonsense is, my daddy using.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
not doing none of that.
No.
And
Yeah, you
and
give your
so
power away.
yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely. So yeah, we can. I remember a young lady told me, "Well, Marki, you had it good. Just because my family has money That
Right.
does not spare you
No.
from pain. It doesn't spare you from addiction. It's actually probably more likely. It doesn't spare you, right?
Right.
It means that you can likely afford the copay to go to counseling, but it don't. You can get that counseling after the fact,
Right.
but it does not spare you.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. Well, talk for just a moment, Marky, because you've got a lot of wisdom in you, and we just got a few more minutes left. I know you've got, a plethora of things on your plate. Talk for a moment to that agent that is struggling and trying to figure out, okay, what strategies should I be focused on, in this emerging market? I know I should be focused on listings, but I'm just a little bit stuck. Like, what do you say to that person? And by the way, kudos to your son. He got in the game, he took off, and he actually is he's soaking. He's like a sponge. He's soaking it up.
yes,
He's learning and he's implementing what he learns.
yes.
So speak to that individual.
I've been including this because we've been through so much in the past year, right? We have to get focused on our why. Why are we doing this in the first place? We
Mm-hmm.
need to have a written business plan because that's the only way we can ever be held accountable. Don't do what everyone else does. If you have a business plan, you need to go and understand where business is going
Mm-hmm.
and think about what is going to be your blue ocean strategy.
Yep.
We cross paths in foreclosures and short sales. I realized that anybody could essentially get into foreclosures and short sales.
Right.
I picked up technology to market the foreclosures and short sales. Here's what's interesting about us. We can always go back and dust off the
Sure.
foreclosure short sale content,
Sure.
but our competitors might not have any technology edge. The technology is what differentiated me from everyone else.
Yeah.
What is going to be your unique selling proposition?
I love it. Your USP. So how can, because what are you doing now in terms of what kind of training are you even, I mean, I know you got something because
I do.
we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but because people need to be in your education. So
Thank you.
what are you teaching right now?
So we have a private membership group, which is 6 figures in 12 months. When I think about leveraging artificial intelligence, I'm identifying those simple tools that if you're consistent with that tool will earn you 6 figures in 12 months. So literally a $20 per month tool can earn you 6 figures in 12 months. So I teach realtors how to earn 6 figures in 12 months. And more importantly, leveraging AI, I can teach you how to double your leads, your productivity, and your earnings in 12 months because I've done it myself. I don't teach theory. I actively engage with every single tool that I recommend to my fellow licensed practitioners.
Love it. Love it. So how can people get a hold of you, Marky? What's the easiest way?
The easiest way, if you spell my name correctly, you will find me because I'm the only Marki Lemons in the world, spelled MarkiLemons. And you can go over to markilemons.com.
Love it. Love it. Love it. What have we left out, Marky? I feel like we could go for the next 2 or 3 hours.
We preached today. I mean, I think we gave hope. We
Yes.
inspired them
Yes.
and we gave
Yes.
them some tools in which they can use in order to be more successful. They got
Absolutely.
some solid advice. We need them to
Absolutely.
implement.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it's not all about strategies and tactical. It definitely is always about mindset, but it's really success is doing the right things in the right order, and that's the reason why you came up with this. I almost call it a boot camp, but you came up with the 6 figures in 12 months. Your training program to really help agents to know what to focus on, because when you're talking about going into a blue ocean versus a red ocean, you've got it. I mean, real estate can be a super red ocean. I mean, most of it.
Yeah.
But these blue ocean strategies that you're teaching are just fire. So thank you
Well,
so
thank
much
you.
for representing us at NAR. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything that you do. And we're going to have you on again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Love you, Marky.
Love you
Talk
too.
soon. God bless you.
God bless.
Well, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Success with Listings podcast. If you are serious about taking your real estate career to the highest heights, making more money and helping more clients while working less hours and spending more time with your family, be sure to get your copy of my free book, Triple My Listing, absolutely free at successwithlistings.com. Now you want to be sure that you subscribe to the podcast and check out successwithlistings.com to get your copy of my free book. Hey, I'll see you on the next one.